Republicans are again wasting taxpayer dollars, this time calling a hearing to argue about the convicted felon in hopes to fish something up that they can use to defend him going into this election. And again, they were destroyed and exposed by the Democrats, who were ready for their shenanigans at every turn and brought some amazing points of their own. So let's watch a few of these because sheesh, you think that MAGA would have learned by now.
I want to talk a little bit about judicial bias, because they've suggested that there's a bias that occurred in this case. Ambassador Eisen, in Donald Trump's other case, where he's alleged to have stolen national security secrets, who appointed the judge to the bench in the Southern Florida federal case?
Unlike the special counsel in the Hunter Biden prosecution, who is a Trump holdover, David Weiss, that was a last-minute, referring back to our history, midnight appointment, you can call it, by Donald Trump of Judge Eileen Cannon.
Are you kidding me? Donald Trump is complaining about bias in his case, and he's on trial for stealing national security documents with a judge that he appointed? Well, that's interesting. I didn't hear any of you all talking about that.
This is an amazing point, and it gives the game away for Republicans when they act like a Democrat couldn't possibly prosecute a Republican, going across the aisle. There has to be judicial bias. But here's a few examples of what they do consider fair. A Republican and Trump appointee and David Weiss prosecuting Democrat and President's son Hunter Biden. Not a peep from Republicans about bias, so obviously they think it's fair. What about Republican special counsel and Trump appointee Robert Hur investigating Democratic President Joe Biden for documents? Republicans consistently tout that, he said Biden was old, so clearly they don't think that there's any bias there. So again, that's completely fair. Or what about Republican and Trump appointee Eileen Cannon overseeing a Republican convicted felon in his own documents case and doing everything in her power to delay it? Definitely no bias there, right? None at all. Or Trump, when he was president, bipartisanly being impeached in the House twice. That's Republicans and Democrats both signing off on that, just for then the Republican majority Senate to acquit the Republican president. Definitely no bias there. When you break down the claims and actions or even inactions of Republicans in this way, you can clearly see it's them with the bias when it comes to claiming bias. And they only do it when they can't defend their own actions on the merit, so instead they turn to their favorite card, victimhood.
Well, let's talk about the Supreme Court, who's deciding whether he has absolute immunity and can send the Navy SEALs to kill any of his opponents, as he alleges in his arguments that he can do. One judge is flying an insurrection flag in solidarity with the insurrection on January 6th that tried to overturn Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 election. Another judge's wife was at the president's speech on January 6th, right before the insurrection occurred.
Not only is the Supreme Court chock full of 3 judges that Trump himself appointed, but as Swalwell also mentioned, 2 of the judges are directly connected and were supportive of January 6th, yet refused to recuse themselves from Trump's immunity hearing about January 6th, yet Republicans seem to see no issue with that. It's literally like Republicans only think that Democrats can be biased against Republicans. Republicans can't be biased against Democrats. Republicans can't be biased against Republicans. Bias only exists for those communist Democrats. Do you think, honestly, if a Biden-appointed judge oversaw the Hunter case and found him not guilty, do you think MAGA would say, yeah, that's fair? They would just take that one on the chin? Or do you think Fox News wouldn't stop talking about it? Or even, let's make it more relatable. What if it was a Biden-appointed judge that oversaw the Hunter case but just kept delaying it and pushing it back until after the election? Do you think that Fox News would run entire news cycles about that? What do you think that Republicans would have to say? Or when it comes to Trump's immunity hearing, what if instead of 2 judges being in support of January 6th, they flew flags saying, lock up all the January 6ers? Do you think that Republicans then would be calling for them to recuse? Just a little food for thought about the motives and mindset of MAGA.
Are NDAs illegal?
When an NDA is used to facilitate an illegal campaign contribution, over $127,000 in excess of the legal limits, yes, it is a means. It is an unlawful means.
You've got to love their gotcha questions just backfiring directly in their face. Republicans continually try to frame this about, it's just about NDAs. NDAs aren't illegal. Oh, Bill Clinton, even though, for one, Bill Clinton was sued and settled a lawsuit. He wasn't like just making hush money payments that he then labeled as legal expenses. It was a lawsuit settlement. So much different. But they also have to leave out all the context when they do this because, you know, that pesky context. It's the antithesis of misinformation. When you pay someone $420,000 over 34 payments specifically to disguise it as his regular income, specifically as a grossed up repayment for an NDA that would help your electoral chances while also paying to have a poll rigged to then just label them legal fees in hopes to suppress a story and not know so your supporters don't know you use your campaign funds for something that was not a legal fee. That's a clear-cut felony. And even with that, in him paying back Cohen for having him pay Red Finch to rig a poll, you can see that his mindset and his motives were clearly on helping his electability. And legal fees, by definition, cannot be grossed up, which is when you pay someone more than the expense so they're made whole after taxes. You don't do that with legal fees. You don't do that with anyone's income. If you're making $25 an hour, that's $50,000 a year, right? You don't then get paid $100,000 a year, so after taxes, you're making $50,000. No, you make your $50,000 of income and you're taxed on it. So now you can see through that how what he's doing doesn't make it a legitimate legal expense. What he was doing was paying hush money. And had he just came out in front of this and said that's what he was doing, I mean, you can see how little his base cares about anything. He's actually liable for rape now, and his base just defends him. So he probably should have just came out and said it, but because he can't help himself but lie, he's now a convicted felon on top of that. But it's also not a legal fee to pay hush money so your campaign doesn't sink, nor is it a legal fee to pay to rig polls. So you really tried it, MAGA. If you enjoyed this video, we're Social Society. We're a commentary channel influenced by politics, society, and the economy. We are pretty left-leaning on this channel, but we're open to our right-wingers as well. The biggest thing here is having conversations that get everyone to the bottom of the truth. If that sounds like something that could interest you, consider smashing that subscribe button, leaving us a like, or even commenting on this video. We even have memberships available as low as $3 if you'd like to support, because the only way we become a society is together.